Evidence, February 18th, 2023. What do people mean when they say, "What's the evidence?" or "Show me the evidence"? Even a brief consideration of this makes it abundantly apparent that evidence isn't just one thing. It is not a monolith. Here's what is happening. There is in the mind a preconceived notion of what evidence is and what is required for any given or particular issue under examination. There are different levels of evidence, including different quality of evidence. Evidence isn't a single thing or entity. Rather, it is an overarching concept that the human mind searches for in order to restructure its understanding of the framework of reality. Evidence is not just data. It is deeper than that. It is a kind of psychological fuel that catalyzes changes in one's internal state of being, a trigger for the change or transformation. But it is vitally important to carefully consider the current societal context and modern conception of evidence as it exists in an age of materialist science. The underlying premise is that all evidence must be, quote-unquote, objective and externally amenable to validation. This comes from modern science. This view, of course, is strong and has its place, but it is by no means the only standard and by no means how evidence has historically been considered. Think of religion, philosophy, mythology, etc. What constitutes acceptable or even quality evidence is highly contextualized and dependent on the accepted zeitgeist of one's society. We are not yet passing judgment on what constitutes good or bad evidence. We are simply pointing out that evidence as a criterion is itself a complex thing that requires careful thought and handling. It gets more complex, more convoluted. New cognitive science informs us that people already have preconceived notions about any given situation, and they search for evidence or data that matches their pre-existing beliefs, not the other way around. Their rejection or acceptance of evidence is in turn not based on a rational consideration of the quality of the evidence or on reasoned arguments, but rather it is based on whether the provided evidence matches their preformed beliefs. And these preformed beliefs are much stronger, deeper, and more mysterious than we appreciate. Most people cannot even articulate where such implicit or tacit knowledge or beliefs come from. They just know it to be true. It is a real mess. And now we can begin to see the roots of at least some of our conflict as human species. Digging deeper, we can also begin to see how the split between what is called objective versus subjective experience or evidence causes additional problems. People are taught or brainwashed more aptly to believe that objective evidence is better than subjective evidence. Depending on the particular situation, this may be the case. And there certainly is a place for such thinking. However, this criterion does not apply uniformly across all time and for all situations. Perhaps the most fundamental observation is the fact that the split between subject and object isn't as clean as we might be inclined to believe. For instance, given that all aspects of objective reality are 100% observed via the subjective lens of an individual, illustrates that there can never truly be full agreement or complete perception of objective reality as it is. There is more to say about this, but I will digress here in the interest of time. There's an argument that can be cogently made regarding the supremacy of objective truth versus subjective truth. Both kinds of truth or data have value, and we argue, that the supremacy of one over the other depends on the needs of the situation or question at hand. For example, in building an airplane or skyscrapers, it behooves us to use the objective and scientifically proven principles of mathematics, physics, and engineering. We need to rely on what is objectively true. However, when we are using human instinct and intuition, which may guide us in truer and more powerful ways than pure intellect or objective analysis, then we recognize the supremacy of the subjective sense over what is objective but patently inferior. In other words, there is a time and a place for both kinds of truth, and the intelligent person knows how and when to use each for its usefulness and power.